Hey everyone, Charles here. And first of all, thank you for stopping by my podcast. If this show inspires you, makes you think, or gives you that courage to jump into action, please help by donating to this show. Click the link in the description and donate. Your donation helps us with production and finding great guests moving forward. Thank you and enjoy.
This song's about a dusty road, a pickup and some dreams. But everything about this tune ain't nothing what it seems. My voice is highly processed, the auto-tune is a show. Yeah, my country twang is a load of bull, I was raised in Buffalo. These beats come from a drum machine, the horns are synthesized. The songwriters from Hollywood, the lyrics plagiarized. Don't know much about the farm life, never lived in the country. I learned to pick a six-string cause my rap career was ending. Nothing if this song is real, cause real is hard to do. So I tip my thrift store cowboy hat to the ones who see it through. 100% real pork. America's pork producers make pork 100% real pork.
Hey everybody, and welcome to another great show of Jump. Yes, I'm your host, Charles Matthews, and if it's your first time, welcome. Jump is all about I find you interesting guests that give you that inspiration to jump. I know you have something great in you. You want to start something new. My guest will help you do that. So sit back and relax and wait for my great guest to show you how he did what he did to take it to the next level. If you're ready to jump, let's go.
You know you should be doing something different, right? Hey, I'm talking to you. Do you believe that you have the gift for greatness or have a special talent, but don't have the courage to take that next step? Always wondering how others made it look so easy? Well, welcome to Jump, the show that will bring you special guests just like you and me. How did they get the courage to jump into greatness? Doing what they love and living the good life. So, get ready to jump with your host, Charles Matthews Jr.
Now, I don't want to waste any more time. Now, what I love about doing this show, I get to find interesting people, like I said, but he's also a fellow podcaster. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hand together for Mr. Collins. Mr. Collins, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. How are you?
Listen, I'm honored. We were talking in the green room before we started the show. You've been doing some big things for us last week. You had your hand in the pot on a lot of big things. Can we spit that out a little bit before we get into it? Can we tell?
Yes, absolutely. Most recently, a week ago, I was back at my alma mater, Jackson State, Mississippi, the HBCU, and I was there because of the announcement of our new head football coach, none other than Deion Primetime Sanders, the Hall of Fame football player. We are fortunate to have him as our coach, and I was fortunate enough to be not only at the press conference, but in a private meeting with him. So it was just an honor. It was a joyous occasion for me and my fellow alumni.
No, that's big, because when I was looking at it, like I told you in the green room, I don't mind sharing with my fans, man. I was shedding a tear, man, when I was like, prime time is going to be a coach? Oh,
Absolutely.
You know these kids are going to be running off the hill, doing some high stepping, going into that end zone.
You bet.
But
they're practicing the dance as we speak.
Trust me. But tell everybody your podcast, because you have a hand in it as well.
Yes, well, my podcast is actually a sports podcast for the university. It's called Tiger Talk with the 1400 Club. I am a huge sports fanatic. I was that kid growing up, like most of us, who thought I was going to be a professional athlete, but that obviously didn't happen. I realized pretty early that wasn't going to take place. So I just kind of stuck with that in terms of sports, and I wanted to utilize my gift, which is just speaking to others. So I kind of combined the two, and I created a podcast for Jackson State University Sports. And it's perfect because now Deion Sanders is our head coach.
So the dream is still coming true a little bit.
Absolutely.
All right. But let's get to why you're here. You're here because you got a story to tell. It's like I look for people that you're doing some great things, and maybe your story or what you've gone through can help somebody else out there that's just at the edge, and they're like, "Oh man, I don't know if I could do it." You can, maybe your story, you can be inspirational to them, and they can help them out. Because I'm reading your bio here. You're an author, right? And
Correct. Yes.
Just being an author, for you to take that chance, it was big, because I've been author for over 45 years.
Oh wow! Congratulations.
Yeah,
awesome.
Not one book's come out yet though, but
I got you. I got you. I was thinking 45 years. Wow.
In my head,
I was doing the math. Wait a minute, how old is he? I mean, he doesn't look. Was he writing at age 5? I mean,
in my head, I'm still an author, because to me, being an author takes guts. To write something down, to really push it out there. People might like it, not like it. You're taking a chance to do all that. Let's talk about your book before. Let's start there.
Yes, Life is Easy, We Make It Hard. It's a self-help book subtitled "The World Wants You to Win. Get Out of Your Own Way." So it's a very motivational, inspirational book, and it's written from a perspective of really me seeing a lot of people in life not reach their goals, not reach their potential, and really just kind of be in that rat race. But what they'll do, they'll blame other factors. They'll blame everything but themselves, instead of just kind of taking a deep breath, looking in the mirror, and fixing what they can fix internally. And I found that when we do this, and I say we because it's funny because I'm actually talking to myself throughout this book, right? Because these are things that I'm guilty of as well. But when we can just look in the mirror and fix the things that we can fix, 99% of the time, that'll put us in a better situation, and we don't even get a chance to blame those outside factors. So I like to say, until you're perfect, don't blame something else. Fix everything that you can fix. And once you're perfect, then blame those other factors. And I don't know anyone who's perfect, so usually we don't get to that aspect. But I think in life, there's prosperity out there for all of us, and it's just up to us to do the right things and eliminate the excuses. And a lot of these things are things that we know, we just don't actually carry out. So I'm talking from a very basic perspective, basic standpoint. But it's not written. It's not written just through my perspective and my experiences. I was fortunate enough to bring together some of the greatest thinkers, achievers, and doers that this world has ever seen to provide some insight within this book. So it's been a thrill just to kind of see the reviews and the feedback from the book.
All right, but can we jump back for a second there, because the title, I want to dive into the title. I want you to
definitely
break down that title for me, because the title alone you could have put that in the whole book as your chapters. Because it has because it has meaning in each part of that. So can you say the title again and break it down? Why'd you come up with that title?
So Life is Easy, We Make It Hard. I actually, in the beginning, I tell the story of how I got that title, when I first heard it. But, in some of my coaches, we talked about the title, and we talked about how that could be controversial, and some people may look at it as something as an attention grabber just to kind of get people to purchase it. But it actually has meaning behind it. And I pride myself on being able to kind of back up that claim throughout the book. So it's just not a catchy title to grab your attention. I really provide evidence of how we make our lives much more difficult than it is. So there's two things to keep in mind as you look at that title. Number one, I'm not taking for granted those things that we can't control, such as terminal illness, fatality, death in the family, this pandemic. So of course, those things are hard. Those are uncontrollables, though. So I'm not making light of those things. I'm talking about the things that we can control. So we have to look at it from a perspective of controllables versus uncontrollable. If I have a death in the family or an illness, then yeah, that's tough. I don't even get into that because that's something that we have to deal with. But I'm talking about when we look at where we are, whether it's in our career, in our relationship, just in our life in general, if we aren't where we want to be, a lot of the time we can trace it back to the decisions that we made, the mentality that we have, the mistakes. And we can trace it back to ourselves. And I say, life isn't hard. We make it hard. It's actually designed. It's actually set up to be easy. Another thing you have to keep in mind with that title, you have to understand the difference between something being hard and something being a challenge. There actually is a difference. Is life a challenge? Going to be challenging? Of course. Right. But I look at it like this. most people actually enjoy a challenge. If life wasn't a challenge, it'd actually be pretty boring if you think about it. So there's nothing wrong with the good old fashioned challenge every now and then. But as long as you're equipped to deal with those challenges, then we can progress through them.
Right. And then I like that one part, though, is the challenges, life compared to hardness. We consider regular things in life thinking, oh, Lord, something happened to me again. And no, it didn't happen to you. This is just life going on.
Exactly.
We need to stop thinking that everything's happening to us and go, wait a minute. Anybody's car could have broke down.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's not only you that have car troubles, you know what I mean? But our mindset thinks that it's me again. I got the bad juju. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
What happened? Because things happen. But the part that I want to state back to is, like you said, certain things in life we can't control. But how do we control them after is the big push.
Mm-hmm.
I can't control my tire going flat. But what can I do now? Do I sit and pout about it? Or do I make a couple of phone calls and, get a friend to pick me up? Get a tire?
Absolutely.
What do I do afterwards? But here's the thing. How do we stop that 24-hour all day, man, I had a flat tire. Man, I had a flat tire. Like, there's some people out there that will have the flat tire bother them all day long.
Wow, this is ironic. I mean, I really feel as though you've read the book because you're literally talking my language. And these are some of the examples that I use throughout the book. I use the most basic, elementary examples that we experience in life. And I try to put it in perspective with different analogies. And those are two things. And it boils down to, really your attitude and a lot of things, again, that we control. Even if we have that flat tire, we control our attitude. And life is one of my favorite quotes. Life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how we react to it. I think most people have read that quote, but I don't think they truly understand it, or they may read it and post it and share it on Facebook or their social media. But when something happens to them, they forget about it, right? They don't actually, keep that in mind. The quote that they just shared on Facebook.
Yeah, because I'll be honest with you. I'm not going to front. I used to be like that. I think that question was more for me when I was younger. That's what, I don't know why, but like it would bother me, and then I would analyze it. I would go back and go, well, what did I do that happened? Maybe I could have done something different. And nowadays, instead of thinking it's done, move on. We have a tendency. Now, let me ask you this, and I don't want you to get in trouble with the ladies.
Okay.
Okay. What do you think? Who does it more, men or women?
Wow. Do I have to answer that?
Come on now.
I would have to say women. I think women express their emotions more than men. I think men do it, but they can't keep it bottled up on the inside. So maybe I'll say maybe we don't express it as much as they do.
Okay. Listen.
So I'm walking that tightrope.
Yeah. And I wasn't going to push you. You're my boy. We men stick together, because the reason I asked you that question, because I think what my thoughts was exactly what you said. I think men hold it in too much. As men, we were taught you got to be strong. You do what you got to do. So we don't tell nobody what's going on with us. The only time we talk to each other is if your boy calls you and says, "Hey man, just checking up on you. What's going on?" Then you're like, "Oh man, my boy called me." Okay. Right. And your boy's like, I was just checking on the score.
Exactly. Exactly.
You know what I mean? We need that outlet. So how can we fix that? Because I do believe that, of what's going on in our society, men, we're putting too much. Is it too much pressure on ourselves? Is society putting too much pressure? Are we thinking too much because of what's going on? What is it?
I think we just have to make sure that we have that support system in place, and we surround ourselves with the people who we can express these feelings to, but people who can really put these things in perspective for us. So what happens is, a lot of times if we're having issues in our lives or at work, a lot of times we vent to the wrong person. So I have a thing called puke uphill, and I actually talk about it in my book. And I'll use an example of just being...
Say that part again.
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly what you heard. puke uphill. And whenever I say this, I have to immediately explain it, like right away. So let me explain what I mean. And I'll give you an example. This takes place in the workplace often. And this is coming from someone who has been an employer for 15 plus years. So what happens is you have an employee who is having issues on the job or having problems, issues with management, issues with the job, issues with the pay, just issues. Mm-hmm. And what do they do? And this is subconscious. This is something that they just naturally do. They reach out to that coworker and they just vent. Okay, I hate this about the job, or I hate this, or, this is not fair, or whatever. And they just vent. A lot of times this coworker can't put things in perspective for you because they honestly don't even have the answers. They don't know the whys behind these things. Why are these things happening? But chances are the owner or the management has a reason and an explanation for these things. So what happens is, and I'll say I'm a coworker. I'm negative about something. I reach out to the other coworker. He doesn't have the answer. Now we're both negative, and we become a cancer within the company, and we end up quitting or just turning everyone negative. So the puke uphill thing, and I preach this to all of my employees. This is actually a requirement. Communication is first and foremost. I care more about having the open line of communications than I care about your performance, meaning I can fix your performance. If you're trying, but you're just not getting it, I can work with you on that. It's my job to make sure that I bring you up to speed and I train you properly. But if the communication is not there, we cannot work together. So puking uphill means that if there's an issue that you have, you must speak with management, someone who's higher up than you, someone who can really, again, put things in perspective for you. So that's the puking uphill analogy. So going back to your original question, because I know I took a big detour there, but in terms of us expressing ourselves, we have to have people in our lives who we can quote unquote vent to, and venting isn't necessarily unhealthy. It's about who you vent to and what feedback they can give you. So when I have these whatever it is that I need to get out, it's important to get it out, but I need to get it out to the right person who can, again, give me the proper perspective, coach me through it, someone who has experienced that, or can really, again, like I keep saying, put it in the proper perspective for me.
So I understand this. Most times when we're venting and expressing our things at work, we're venting to the wrong person. I
would say 95% of the time. Rarely, it's because employees develop relationships with other employees. That's just how it is. When I get hired, I remember when I got hired at my first sales job, the other guy who got hired with me pretty much the same day, we just immediately hit it off because we were in orientation together. We were in training together. And about a week into the job, he became negative because he wasn't making the sales. He didn't get it. He didn't agree with the commission pay. So he was in my ear talking negative, right? And he ended up quitting. He tried to get me to quit. But typically 99% of the time, the person in my shoes will fall into that trap, right? And end up becoming negative with him. But I went to my manager with those issues. Hey, I'm having trouble. I don't understand this. Help me with this. And the rest was history for me.
So I love that last part because it's so true. That person, if they put enough negativity in your ear, and they're like, yo, man, this job is terrible, man. Let's just go. There's got to be something better out there. And if you're not strong, you're listening to the hype. You're like, yeah, why am I still? Yeah, I agree.
Exactly.
Next, you're like, yo, can you spot me a 20?
Exactly. And he took a couple people out with him. There was actually, I think, 3 or 4 of us who had kind of started within a week or two of each other. And the other 2 individuals, they listened to his advice. Not saying that they didn't go on and do great things. Of course, they probably still did. But, again, they went out with him.
They went out instead of saying, okay, slow down. Let's do this together. And is there a role? Let me ask you this. Is there a role as the person listening to help that other person vent?
Absolutely. They need to be careful. Sometimes, first of all, with venting, sometimes it's just about listening. It's not even about offering any types of feedback. Sometimes people just want to get it out and be done with it. They don't even really want to, hear your feedback, to be honest. So for the person listening, it's important for them to do just that. Listen, be an ear, just listen to what they're saying. And if they are qualified, keyword qualified, and you have to be honest with yourself. Are you qualified? If someone is having car trouble, are you qualified to tell them are you a mechanic? Either you are or you aren't. Right? If I'm not sure, I know there's YouTube and all these things out there, but look, I'm not a mechanic. Okay, so go to a mechanic. Right? So be honest with yourself. Am I qualified to give this person the proper perspective? If not, I need to send them in the right direction. Hey, you know what? Let's figure out who you can talk to get through it. And I've done that plenty of times. I like, hey, let's figure out who you can talk to. I'm pretty sure someone else is experiencing this same issue. Let's see how we can get through it together. And I think that's the best route to take.
Gotcha. All right. Stay tuned. We're going to take a quick break. But when we come back, I want to dive into your program. You have a little help tip that you can help people. I want to dive into you. My listeners always like when I can grab some tips out of you. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Beauty Club Outlet. Our goal is to have our clients leave Beauty Club Outlet's store more confident, comfortable, and psychologically liberated than before they came in. And this is the motivation for our entire customer experience and product offering at Beauty Club Outlet. Click the link below and use promo code CMJ for 15% off. Now back to Charles and his special guest.
Hey, it's okay if you're driving or too busy to take notes. Charles has your parachute packed with all the info you need to jump into success. Check out the links section for all the tools you need to land safe. Now, let's keep falling with Charles and his special guest.
Yes, we're back. And, like the promo said, he is my special guest, and he's doing great things out there. Listen, if COVID wasn't happening, where would you be doing on stage? What would you be talking? What would you be doing?
Probably more in-person book signings because that was my thing. My book released a little bit over a year ago, and when it really started to gain a lot of attention, a lot of national recognition, COVID hit. So I was looking to line up some different events in terms of traveling and some different awards that it was up for as well. So I would probably really be more into that than anything else right now.
All right. And then if people want to get this book, where can they get it?
Yes, they can go to my website. It's an all-inclusive website where you can order the book. You can learn more about me. You can email me. You can pretty much keep up with everything that I'm doing, all the social media sites and things of that nature. It is tinyurl.com/Collins Cory. And Cory is Cory, no E. So that's tinyurl.com/Collins, COLLINS, Cory, CORY.
Okay. Now, I'm going to do some rapid fire with you, okay? Just to get to know you a little bit and break this down. You ready?
Awesome. Let's go.
All right. In the shower, favorite song?
In the shower, I have to go to my rap. So I have to go to some Master P because I get away. I'm to myself. I can break away from everything else. So let's go with some old school, No Limit.
Okay. And now, is that before you go on stage, is that the same song?
Oh, no. But before I go on stage, if we're talking about music, I probably go a little bit more mellow, and believe it or not, I probably go to some '90s R&B.
Okay, hidden talent that nobody knows about.
Hidden talent that no one knows about. I actually have the ability to predict the future.
Okay, hold on. All right, for us, Lotto Max is coming up. Give me 3 numbers. I'm playing them tonight.
Oh. Hey, I'm keeping that to myself.
Listen, man. All right, we'll talk after the show because I don't want too many people winning that right now. All right, you have a client coming over to the house.
Mm-hmm.
You have to impress. You're cooking. What is your go-to dish?
Anything that my wife can cook because I don't go into the kitchen. So yeah, we're having a conversation, and my wife is she's gonna knock it out, and I trust whatever she chooses. But if it's beyond microwave or reading the instructions on the back for the oven, where it says preheat for 5 minutes, bake at 450 for 15 to 18 minutes, anything beyond that, I'm good.
Oh man, I wasn't expecting that, man, but that's all right. That's all good. And last one, favorite superhero and why?
Superman. He was the most popular. He just had the most powers, and he is just beloved. His logo, his emblem is universally recognized. So he is the man.
Now, if you weren't doing this with the coaching and the book, what would you be doing?
I would be probably on ESPN or one of the sports outlets. That's actually what I went to school for, and I started that after college, and I did it for a couple of years for CBS before I made a complete transition. So I would be, you'd see me on TV
All
covering
right.
sports.
Top 3 sports.
Basketball, or do I have to actually give you 3 separate sports?
Hold on. I thought football would have been there. I thought
football would be 4th, but we got to go basketball 3 times.
Oh, okay. So then I guess favorite player?
All time?
Yes.
Or current?
All time.
Magic Johnson.
Oh, see, we just went to a whole different direction with this conversation. All right, real quick, because I want to get back to you. Why Magic?
Well, I just remember being a kid, probably 3, 4, 5 years old. I vividly remember this. It was a Saturday afternoon. Everyone was napping. It was raining. I just went downstairs. I turned on the TV. There was a basketball game on, and it was the Lakers. I didn't know what that meant. It just stood out because I was used to, like the local high school teams, the Bulldogs, the Tigers. So the Lakers, that really stood out. And then there was this guy who was just going up and down the court named Magic. So that stood out. He was throwing all these crazy passes and doing all these things that was different. So from that day, I was hooked and I never looked back.
Nice. So speaking of magic, how can we bring out the magic in us? A lot of us listening, they're inspired by what you're saying. But when we get up in the morning, we have this thing of doubt. Mm-hmm. How can we get doubt out of our minds?
Do you want one answer or do you want multiple? Because there's so many different ways.
Listen, give me the top 3 for my listeners.
Well, I'll simplify it. I'll combine it into one.
Okay.
We need a reference group. Okay. A reference group, that means the 5 people that you spend the most of your time with, that makes up your reference group. They have to be positive influences. They have to be able to put things in perspective for you. They have to be able to motivate you, inspire you. Because if you're spending time with people who are negative, people who aren't going anywhere, then you're going to kind of fall into that trap. And we typically take on the mindset, the behavior of those people in our reference group. So we have to make sure that we put the right people in our reference group. And that can be tricky because a few of these people, you don't really have a choice. Like, for example, if you work in a cubicle, I know a lot of people aren't doing that now with COVID, but just in general, that person beside you is probably in your reference group because you're spending 8 hours a day right beside them just by default. So if they're negatives, guess what? You're kind of taking all that in. All right. Your spouse, your significant other, you're spending a lot of time with them. So hopefully they're a positive influence. But if not, then hey, what can we do? So typically you only get to choose about 2 to maybe 4 of those people. So we have to make sure that those are the right people. If we can do that, then everything else will fall in line. You'll wake up with the right mindset because that's all you've been surrounded by, that previous day, that previous week.
So then what do you, if you have negative people in your life?
You have to remove them. I mean, it's just that simple. That doesn't mean you have to remove them completely, but they can't be within that top 5 in terms of who you spend the most time with. So you make them count. And if you don't have the positive people, if you don't know who they are, it doesn't have to be someone who you actually know or have met. My 5th person in my reference group for the longest was John C. Maxwell, the legendary leadership guru and author. Right. And this was before I actually met him. I read all of his books. I was on it, listened to all of his podcasts, his YouTube videos, everything that he had available. I listened to, I watched, I read. So he was a part of my reference group just because I spent so many hours per week being plugged into what he was talking about.
Okay. See that? I like that. So it doesn't have to be a physical person. It could be somebody that's online, somebody that you read a book, even go to a YouTube channel.
Absolutely.
That's what it got to be. That's
Absolutely.
what it's got to be. But how do you wake up in the morning and be inspired by yourself?
Honestly, for me, I just look at the fact that I have 2 children, and I know that children are so impressionable. Those first few years of their lives can really mold who they become. So I just know that I have to be an example. They're watching every little thing, even if they aren't saying anything, they're just taking it into account. And I know this because a lot of times they'll repeat the things that I say, or I'll see them do something that I do. And I know that they've been watching just something simple as watching Shark Tank. I have a 13-year-old and 8-year-old. And for about the past 3 or 4 years, they just gravitated towards the show because they saw me watching it. I never told them, hey, let's watch Shark Tank. But it got to the point where they were saying, hey, let's turn on Shark Tank. And they were just so into it. So that inspires me, knowing that every decision that I make could potentially have an impact on them.
I got you. They lead by example is what they always say.
Absolutely.
All right. So before we end, I always like to give a push to a man doing a job that I do. Let's go back to your podcast. Talk to us about the podcast, when we can catch it, and how you make it different.
So with my podcast, and really, again, it's about college sports, my alma mater, Jackson State, but we have branched out to things that are far greater than that. We've had some national sports figures. We've gotten into some obviously the things that are going on with the social injustice, with the Black Lives Matter, racial inequality, everything. We've really kind of gotten into that. And so I think it's a platform that it's grown beyond our wildest dreams or imagination. Obviously, with this Deion Sanders hiring, that's going to take it to a new level in terms of the guests that we'll have. We also we're from Mississippi, and if you recall, we just have finally changed our state flag recently in the past couple of months. Mm-hmm. So that's been a big nationwide story. So we touched on that. So it's called Tiger Talk with the 1400 Club. It's on all of the platforms. It's on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and we release shows 2 to 3 times a week. So it's really growing.
Now, when you're sitting there, you're the only host?
No, we rotate hosts. We have 3 main hosts, which we rotate. Sometimes we're on shows together, but we have about 5 or 6 that we kind of rotate in between. Okay.
Now, and I guess as Black men, mm-hmm. How did you feel when you saw that change?
It was one of those surreal moments. There are a few things in my lifetime where some are good and some are bad, but you're going to always remember where you were when it happened. The 9/11, obviously September 11th, President Obama being elected. Even for me, Magic Johnson announcing that he had HIV. So there's just a few things where you're going to always remember, like, wow, when that happened, I was here. And I remember it like it was yesterday. And that was one of those things, because we've been talking about this pretty much for as long as I've been alive. That's just how long it's been. And I never thought I would see it in my lifetime. So I really can't think of the words to describe it. I mean, proud, but, we finally caught up with the rest of the country. It's been embarrassing at times. It's held us back. And as being a Mississippian, there's a stereotype about Mississippi, and I hate it because the outside perspective is not what it is on the inside, because I grew up there and I lived there for the first 24 years of my life. And I go back several times a year. Sometimes I go back once a month because I love it. So what people think about it, it's not necessarily true, but it's hard to argue that when we have that state flag. Right. So it has hurt us in recruiting in terms of our sports for our college and just getting students from other places to come there. So now, since that has been removed, it's going to open the doors for so many more things. I know we're talking about potentially having things like the Senior Bowl there, the women's NCAA Final Four. There's just so many doors that has opened up just because we removed that flag.
Yeah, nice. All right, my friend. Last question. What question I miss that you would have asked if you were in my position?
I would have asked, why do you do what you do?
And the answer is?
Because I love helping others. My platform is a coaching service. We do leadership development, business coaching, success coaching. It's all to help others, because I know the most successful people in the world are those who have put others in better situations. So that's always been the most rewarding thing for me, helping others without expecting anything in return, just doing it genuinely, because that actually is what brings about a return and a reward when we do it with no motives or no expectations. So that is what I am completely about.
Well, my friend, it's been a pleasure and an honor to have you on my show. I am definitely going to subscribe right now, and make sure you guys subscribe as well. It sounds like your podcast is going to be off the chain. I know Mr. Man's going to be coming on and just giving it some more fire.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm definitely going to watch it. But before I let you go, this is your opportunity to shout out anybody, any fans, any listeners, anybody want to shout out to, go ahead. The stage is yours.
Well, first and foremost, of course, my wife. Obviously, she's listening, so I have to start there. She was the first person who told me to write a book. I scoffed. I'm not writing a book. And a couple of years later, I had a book. So I definitely her, my kids. Obviously I love them, and everyone in my life who has been a positive influence on me. I wouldn't be where I am without you guys. So I definitely appreciate it.
All right, and I appreciate you, my friend. Thank you so much for being on The Jump.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for listening. If you liked the show or have a comment, we would love to hear from you. Join our mailing list, and as always, check out our special deals links below. I hope this has inspired you to look at your life and jump. See you next week.
Amazon is offering sign-on bonuses up to $1,000, plus get up to $20 an hour for select roles. The best part? We're hiring near you. So start now to take home something greater. New, higher wages with a sign-on bonus, a range of real benefits, and career growth opportunities in a top-rated workplace. So earn more and see how great pay and sign-on bonuses can lead to a greater life for you. Go to amazon.com/apply. Amazon is an equal opportunity employer. Amazon is offering sign-on bonuses up to $1,000, plus get up to $20 an hour for select roles. The best part? We're hiring near you. So start now to take home something greater. New, higher wages with a sign-on bonus, a range of real benefits, and career growth opportunities in a top-rated workplace. So earn more and see how great pay and sign-on bonuses can lead to a greater life for you. Go to amazon.com/apply. Amazon is an equal opportunity employer.
Hey, hope you had a great time listening to the show. If you think I did a great job, please buy me a coffee. I still got a lot of work to do. We would love to hear from you, your feedback, so please click the link and leave us a review. You can help us grow by following us on all social media platforms and sharing this link. Once again, it's time for you to jump. Success is waiting.